Imagine a world where the very bridge that connected you to your loved one becomes a battleground for corruption, betrayal, and a fight for justice. This is my story. Part 1. The Unexpected Warning. It was one of those serene early mornings in our little lakeside community, where the gentle lapping of water against the docks and the soft rustle of autumn leaves set a peaceful rhythm to everyday life. Neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles and familiar hellos, and every face told a story of shared history and trust. I had always cherished the sense of belonging, a community where every person mattered, and every home was part of one large, interconnected family. I lived in a modest but charming lakeside house that had been in my family for years, a place filled with memories, laughter, and the promise of tomorrow. My life had taken on a new meaning when my beloved younger sister, Emily, was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. Determined to be by her side through every challenge, I transformed from a simple homeowner into a steadfast caretaker. Emily lived on a secluded island just across the glistening lake, a small haven where she sought peace and isolation from the relentless pace of the mainland. I knew that every visit, every moment spent together, was a lifeline that strengthened our bond and brought hope in the midst of her painful battle. With unwavering resolve and a heart full of love, I had built a modest wooden bridge connecting my property to Emily's island. It was not just a physical structure made of carefully placed planks and nails, but a symbol of our unbreakable connection, a tangible promise that no distance, no matter how wide the waters, could ever keep us apart. Each time I crossed that bridge, I carried with me the determination to provide for her, to ensure she received her medications, groceries, and the constant emotional support she desperately needed. However, on one crisp autumn morning, as the mist still clung to the surface of the lake and the horizon hinted at the promise of a new day, a sense of foreboding replaced the usual calm. I found a bright yellow envelope sitting on my doormat, a stark, official-looking letter that immediately disrupted the quiet harmony of my morning routine. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal and unfolded the paper. The words that greeted me were as cold as the early frost on the grass. The letter declared that my privately built bridge was in violation of community rules, a structure that the Homeowners Association, HOA, had no business challenging since it sat on my own property and served a vital, personal purpose. My heart sank as I read through the formal language that dismissed the very essence of why the bridge existed in the first place. How could something built out of necessity and love, designed solely to keep me connected to my sister during her most desperate time, be deemed illegal? As I stood there, the sound of the wind picking up and the distant call of a loon breaking the silence, I couldn't shake the chilling realization that this was only the beginning. Deep down, a sinister truth began to reveal itself, a hint of corruption and betrayal that reached far beyond simple rule enforcement. And in that moment, as I clutched the letter with shaking hands and gazed out across the lake at the silhouette of Emily's island, I knew that my life was about to be swept into a maelstrom of deceit and danger. A dark conspiracy that would force me to confront not only the faceless bureaucracy of the HOA, but also the very heart of corruption that threatened to tear our community apart. What if the real reason behind this violation was not about the rules at all, but a much deeper, more sinister agenda, one that could cost us everything? Part 2. The Personal Battle. After that fateful morning, my mind was in constant turmoil as I recalled every moment spent building the bridge, a structure that was more than just wood and nails, but a lifeline woven with love and determination for my sister, Emily. Every nail I hammered and every plank I carefully laid down was imbued with the promise that no distance, no matter how vast the water separating us, would ever weaken the bond we shared. I built that bridge so she could receive her life-saving medications on time, enjoy the comforting visit of a familiar face, and find solace in knowing that I was just a few steps away, always ready to provide the support she needed in her battle against stage 3 cancer. It was, in every sense, the physical manifestation of my duty as her caretaker, a testament to the unyielding power of family and love. As the days passed, whispers began to circulate around the neighborhood, echoing my own sense of injustice. I wasn't alone in my struggle. Several of my neighbors had found themselves facing similarly arbitrary decisions from the HOA. I overheard murmurs about playsets being dismantled without warning, meticulously built gardens trampled under the guise of enforcement, and even charming porches condemned for minor infractions. It quickly became apparent that the rigid hand of the HOA was not only targeting me and my bridge, it was overstepping its bounds, intruding into the personal lives of many families who had called this lakeside community their sanctuary. These stories of shared grievances added fuel to the fire burning inside me, deepening my resolve to fight back against a system that had grown so callous and disconnected from the realities of everyday life. Determined to make my voice heard, I decided to attend the next HOA board meeting, a place where decisions that affected the very heart of our community were made behind closed doors. The atmosphere in the meeting hall was thick with tension and apprehension. Neighbors filed in, some with hopeful expressions, others with a quiet anger simmering beneath the surface. It was there, amidst the anxious murmurs and furtive glances, that I finally faced Karen Mitchell, the stern, unyielding president of the HOA. Known for her cold demeanor and her influential ties to powerful developers, Karen embodied everything that was wrong with the system. With a deep breath, I stood up, my heart pounding as I confronted her directly. Karen, this bridge isn't just a structure. It's a lifeline to my sister, Emily. It's there for her medications, for her daily support, for her hope when things seem darkest, I said, my voice trembling with both determination and the weight of my personal duty. I continued, explaining how each piece of the bridge symbolized a promise to never let distance or bureaucratic red tape keep us apart, and how its removal would not only sever that connection, but endanger a life already teetering on the edge. The room fell silent as Karen's icy gaze swept over me, her eyes betraying a mixture of annoyance and calculated indifference. She dismissed my heartfelt plea with a curt reminder of rules and covenants, insisting that personal circumstances could never exempt one from the community's standards. In that charged moment, I felt both the crushing weight of injustice and the burning determination to fight back, not only for my sister, but for every neighbor who had suffered under the heavy hand of an overreaching authority. As murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, I realized that my stand was igniting a spark. The battle for my bridge was no longer a solitary fight. It was becoming a rallying cry for all those who believed that family, duty, and community mattered more than blind adherence to arbitrary rules. And as I locked eyes with Karen, whose impassive facade barely concealed her own mounting apprehension, I knew that this confrontation was just the beginning of a much larger struggle. A struggle that would test our collective resolve and force us to question the very foundations of the community we had all once trusted. Part 3. Threats, Manipulation, and Break-ins. In the days that followed the heated board meeting, the air around our once peaceful community grew thick with tension and silent menace. I began receiving unsettling messages, cryptic notes slipped under my door, emails with anonymous signatures that hinted at dire consequences if I continued my stubborn defiance. It wasn't long before the HOA's true tactics emerged. Representatives began approaching me with unsettling offers to buy my property at outrageously inflated prices, as if they could simply erase my connection to Emily and the bridge that meant so much to us. Every conversation carried an undercurrent of manipulation, a thinly veiled threat that I was already being isolated from the very community I'd helped build. One night, as the autumn chill crept through the quiet darkness and the only sound was the rhythmic lapping of the lake against the shore, I found myself awake, heart pounding, as a strange feeling of being watched over came me. I peered through my curtains and noticed a shadow moving stealthily along the edge of my property. The figure, cloaked in darkness, slipped silently from one cover to another, almost as if it knew the layout of my home better than I did. Moments later, I discovered signs that someone had been inside, a window left ajar, a drawer slightly pulled open, and scattered papers that held little resemblance to the order I usually maintained. The invasion felt personal, invasive, and it sent a shiver down my spine, making me question not just the integrity of the HOA, but the very safety of my home and family. Amidst this climate of fear and uncertainty, An unexpected lifeline emerged from an unlikely source. One crisp morning, as I was sorting through a pile of suspicious documents left on my doorstep, I received a discreet knock at my door. It was Mr. James, a soft-spoken former treasurer of the HOA, whose eyes held the weight of secrets too long concealed. In hushed tones, he confided in me that there was far more at play than a simple dispute over a bridge. He revealed that the board had been funneling illicit payments to a mysterious consulting firm, orchestrating shady property deals, and using our community's trust as a cover for a multi-million-dollar corruption scheme. His voice trembled as he detailed how influential developers and even local politicians were being swayed with bribes and manipulated through forged documents, all designed to coerce property owners like me into submission. The realization that the very forces behind the threats and break-ins were part of a calculated, high-stakes conspiracy filled me with both dread and a fierce determination to expose the truth. Each new revelation, each ominous encounter, only deepened the sense of betrayal. I began to see that the threats were not isolated incidents but deliberate moves in a grander, darker plan, one that was willing to cross any boundary to silence dissent and secure profits at the expense of our community's well-being. With every covert conversation and every warning, the stakes grew higher, and my resolve to fight back hardened like steel. This was not just about my bridge, or even about a single family. It was a battle against a corrupt system that had invaded our lives and stripped us of our right to feel safe in our own homes. Part 4. The Bridge Demolition and FBI Involvement. That fateful night, despite every legal appeal I had filed and every desperate plea I had made, the unthinkable happened. In the eerie stillness of a moonlit evening, with the lake's surface glistening like shattered glass, a cacophony of heavy engines shattered the silence. I had been anxiously awaiting any sign of action, but nothing could have prepared me for the shock that awaited. Out of nowhere, the roar of demolition trucks erupted from the darkness, their floodlights cutting through the night as they advanced toward my precious bridge. I watched, heart pounding in my ears, as the very structure I had built with so much love and sacrifice, my lifeline to my sister Emily, was being torn apart piece by piece, despite all my legal filings that should have protected it. In those agonizing moments, every sound seemed amplified, the clatter of metal, the crunch of wood, and the relentless hum of machinery. I stood frozen, a mix of despair and fury surging through me, as I realized that the HOA had not only ignored my appeals, but had acted with outright illegality. There was no warning, no judicial order, just a cold, calculated decision executed under the cloak of darkness. With each crashing impact, the bridge crumbled, and with it, the hope of keeping our family together. I knew that if this was the beginning, the full scale of their corruption was about to be revealed. Determined not to let their treachery go unchallenged, I resolved to gather every shred of evidence I could find. Over the following days, I became both a detective and a target, risking everything to document their wrongdoing. I rummaged through piles of discarded documents and secretly recorded hushed conversations between HOA representatives and mysterious figures whose names were never mentioned aloud. Late at night, when the world was asleep and the threat of surveillance was at its peak, I meticulously photographed altered property maps and forged documents that blatantly misrepresented the legal boundaries of my land. Every secret recording, every grainy photo, and every page of tampered records became a piece of the puzzle, a puzzle that, once completed, would expose the full magnitude of a corruption scheme that stretched far beyond our small community. My nights were sleepless, filled with a dangerous mix of adrenaline and dread as I scurried through dark hallways and back alleys, always on the lookout for someone watching me. The risk was immense, yet every moment felt critical. I knew that if I could compile enough irrefutable evidence, if I could piece together the connections between forged signatures, manipulated zoning laws, and secretive financial transactions, then I might finally force the truth into the light. And then, just as I felt the pressure reaching its peak, the unexpected happened. In the midst of my covert investigations, 2 unmarked black SUVs pulled up in front of my house one morning. My heart skipped a beat as 2 stern-faced men in suits stepped out, their presence radiating authority. They introduced themselves as FBI agents, Agent Torres and Agent Michaels, and it was immediately clear that their arrival was no coincidence. The agents carefully examined the evidence I had painstakingly collected, their eyes narrowing as they flipped through the documents, listened to the recordings, and studied the altered property maps. Their expressions transformed from professional detachment to quiet determination, as if my story had finally connected with a larger case they'd been building for months. With precise, measured words, Agent Torres explained that their investigation into the HOA's activities had uncovered a sprawling criminal enterprise, one that involved not just local developers, but also high-level corruption spanning county lines. The evidence I had gathered provided the missing link to a multi-million-dollar scheme involving forged documents and manipulated regulations that were meant to coerce homeowners into selling their properties under duress. In that moment, I felt both a surge of vindication and a renewed sense of purpose. The arrival of the FBI turned the tide. It signified that my solitary battle had grown into a full-scale investigation, one that would bring the corrupt practices of the HOA and its powerful allies into the unforgiving light of justice. As the agents meticulously began to secure the scene, taking copies of my recordings, sealing off evidence, and making detailed notes, I couldn't help but feel that every sacrifice, every sleepless night, had led to this turning point. The demolition of my bridge, a symbol of our familial love and unity, had inadvertently become the spark that ignited a fight against a far-reaching web of deceit and manipulation. The FBI's presence was both a promise and a challenge, a promise that corruption would not go unpunished, and a challenge to every crooked official who had dared to trample on our rights. In that surreal moment, as I stood amidst the wreckage of what once connected my heart to Emily's Island, I realized that the battle was far from over. It had only just begun, and now, with the federal authorities stepping in, there was hope that justice would prevail over tyranny. The stakes were higher than ever, and as I looked into the determined faces of Agent Torres and Agent Michaels, I knew that our community's fight for truth was entering a new, decisive phase, one where the actions of a few would be laid bare for all to see, and where the strength of our unity might just be the key to reclaiming what was rightfully ours. Part 5. Rebuilding Community and Justice. In the aftermath of that devastating night, when the bridge was reduced to a pile of splintered wood and shattered dreams, something unexpected began to take shape, a unity among neighbors that had long been suppressed under fear and corruption. Even though the physical bridge connecting me to Emily's Island was gone, its symbolic meaning grew stronger. It became the catalyst that ignited our community into action. Slowly, families who had once been isolated by rigid rules and silent resignation began to come together, sharing their own stories of injustice. Neighbors who had suffered from arbitrary fines and unjust demolitions started meeting in living rooms, backyards, and community centers, rallying against the oppressive force of the HOA and its crooked allies. In these gatherings, the raw pain of lost trust was met with a resolute determination to reclaim the community we had all once cherished. As we united, the tide of justice began to turn. The legal battles that followed were long and arduous, a grueling test of our collective resolve. Public exposés emerged, broadcasting the dark underbelly of corruption to the wider world. News anchors reported on the fraudulent zoning permits and forged signatures, while community members testified in court about the constant intimidation and manipulation they had endured. Each court session, every headline and social media post served as a reminder that our voices, when raised together, carried the weight of truth and integrity. The once impenetrable fortress of the HOA's power began to crumble under the relentless scrutiny of the law and the unyielding pressure of public opinion. Victory, both legal and personal, started to appear on the horizon, a testament to the fact that justice could indeed prevail over tyranny. Yet, as with every battle worth fighting, the cost was deeply personal. There were countless nights of fear and loss, moments when I questioned whether the price of standing up for what was right was too high. I sacrificed sleep and peace of mind, often working late into the night to gather evidence and prepare for yet another day in court. The emotional toll was immense, and there were times when the burden felt unbearable. But in the midst of that struggle, I also witnessed acts of extraordinary courage and compassion. Neighbors offered a shoulder to lean on, local businesses provided support, and even strangers reached out with words of encouragement. Each shared tear, every nod of solidarity, rekindled the hope that had once seemed so fragile. In that spirit of collective strength and resilience, our community found a new beginning. Though the bridge was physically gone, the connections we forged in its absence were stronger than ever, woven from shared struggles, mutual support, and a common belief in the power of unity. We emerged not only with legal victories and public vindication, but with a renewed sense of purpose, to rebuild our community on the foundation of transparency, trust, and a commitment to ensuring that no one would ever have to fight this battle alone again. Part 6. A New Beginning. In the weeks and months that followed the upheaval, our community slowly began to heal and rebuild. The fallout from the HOA's corruption and the subsequent federal investigation ushered in a new era, a time when the very fabric of our neighborhood was rewoven with threads of honesty and mutual respect. The reformed HOA, now steered by new leadership that genuinely valued fairness and transparency, set about restoring a sense of security and support that had long been missing. Community meetings became vibrant forums where everyone's voice was heard, and decisions were made with the well-being of all residents in mind. It was as if a heavy fog had finally lifted, revealing a clearer, brighter future where integrity and accountability reigned. Amid these positive changes, hope began to take root in the most unexpected of places. Emily, who had once seemed so vulnerable and alone on her secluded island, started to respond positively to her treatment. Her strength, nurtured by our relentless support and the newfound unity of our community, became a symbol of the resilience that lay at the heart of our collective journey. It was in these moments, seeing Emily smile a little more each day, hearing her laugh with genuine warmth, that I realized a new kind of bridge was emerging. This bridge wasn't built of wood or nails, but of community trust, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds formed through shared struggle. Standing by the lake, where the remnants of the old bridge still whispered of the past, I couldn't help but reflect on the remarkable transformation that had taken place. The battle we had fought was not measured merely in legal victories or public exposures, but in the quiet, steadfast moments of reconnection and healing among neighbors. Our community had been shattered by corruption and greed, yet out of that darkness, we had forged something far stronger, a collective spirit that reaffirmed the true meaning of home. In that reflective silence, I understood that fighting for what's right, even when the odds seem insurmountable, can transform lives. It teaches us that resilience isn't just about withstanding adversity, it's about coming together, supporting one another, and rebuilding with a foundation of integrity and love. As I looked over our now vibrant community, neighbors greeting each other with genuine smiles, families gathered in laughter, and a renewed sense of belonging in every corner, I felt a deep, abiding hope for the future. We had turned a devastating loss into an opportunity to redefine our home, and in doing so, discovered that sometimes the most enduring bridges are those built within our hearts.